A world of iron curtains and red stars, crumbling in mere years. In the late 1980s, communist system, once unshakable titans, collapsed like a house of cards. What sparks this seismic shift? Is the rapid decline of communist system in the late 1980s and early 1990s a result of internal failures and external pressures? Let's dive into the forces that toppled an ideology and reshaped history. First, let's talk about economics. Communist regimes down in inefficiency. Centralized planning choked innovation, leaving Soviet factories outdated and Eastern Europe shelves bare. Although it initially experienced rapid economic growth, it was largely because the Soviets were an underdeveloped economy. They were able to adopt Western technology. Once they started to catch up with the West, its ability to borrow technologies and productivity soon diminished. Oil prices crashed in the 80s, cutting the USSR's lifeline. While citizens queued for bread, their faith in the system wilting away. This wasn't just mismanagement, it was a slow-motion economic implosion. Then came the people. Eastern Europe erupted in a chorus of defiance in 1980s, accelerating the collapse of communist regimes. In Poland, a trade union formed in 1980 quickly grew into a broad anti-communist force, organizing strikes and demanding political freedoms, and eventually leading to semi-free election in 1989, then ended communist dominance. This is known as the Solitary Movement. Hungary, on the other hand, sliced open the Iron Curtain, and East Germans stormed the Berlin Wall, treating it down brick by brick. These weren't protests, they were revolutions, a tidal wave of voices shouting, "Enough!" These movements often met with little resilience due to the weakening Soviet control. Toppled regimes in Czechoslovakia, Romania, and beyond within months, signaling the end of the Eastern Bloc. Next, the military burden. The arms race with the US split itself. By the 1980s, the USSR was spending an estimated 15 to 20% of its GDP on defense, far outpacing the US 5 to 6%. This drained resources from civilian sectors worsened economic woes. The Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, announced by Reagan in 1983, further pressured the Soviets to keep up technologically, despite their faltering economy. Meanwhile, China turned away, thriving under Deng Xiaoping's market reforms. Communist poster child was fading, abandoned by its own king. Enter Mikhail Gorbachev, the reformer with a dream. In 1985, he unleashed glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. Glasnost allows greater freedom of speech and press, unleashing pent-up criticism of regime and exposing its failure. Perestroika aimed to decentralize the economy and introduce limit market mechanism. He wanted to save socialism, but instead, he unchecked criticism and chaos. Shortage worsened, dissent soared, and when Eastern Europe rebelled, he refused to crush them. His vision cracked the Soviet Union foundation, letting the whole edifice crumble. Finally, the 1991 Soviet coup, at last, the separate gas. Headliners kidnapped Gorbachev, aiming to rewind the clock, but the stress rolled back. Boris Yeltsin riled Moscow's defiance. Soldiers waved, and the coup fizzled in days. The Communist Party mask shattered, and by December, the Soviet Union dissolved, its red flag lowered forever. So, why did the communists fall so fast? It was a perfect storm. Economy crumbled, people rose, military overreached, reform backfired, and coup misfired. Together, they didn't just end a regime, they ended an era. This collapse wasn't a whisper, it was a thunderclap, echoing a truth. Systems built on control, not freedom, can't withstand the weight of their own flaws.